Try adjusting the contrast a little bit more. Right there. Oh, hello. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fadgett. In addition to providing informative and entertaining photography-related content, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, we're working on customizing some of our cameras so that we can capture images of the residents of the planet that we're on, because most of the imaging equipment can't display their true colors. In fact, most of our cameras can't detect them at all.
I've increased sensitivity in the ultraviolet and infrared ranges by 15%.
Thanks, Fib. In this episode of the podcast, I'm speaking with regular guest on the show, Leighton DaCosta, about how to best photograph black skin. Leighton provides some helpful tips to make sure you're capturing your melanated subjects in all of their beauty. All that after the break.
We are locked on at optimal sensitivity.
Excellent. Everybody form a line. And please remember, I can't see you unless you're in front of the camera. Photographers, filmmakers, and creators, it's time to gear up with Adorama. Whether you're shooting your first frame or your next masterpiece, Adorama has everything you need to bring your vision to life. Cameras, lenses, lighting, and studio gear. From the latest cutting-edge equipment to trusted essentials, Adorama is your one-stop shop for the tools creators rely on. Plus, with expert advice, fast shipping, and incredible selection, you'll spend less time searching and more time creating. Get our special discounts at nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Adorama. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Adorama. Adorama, more than a camera store, it's where creativity lives. Hey photographers, are you ready for a website glow up? Get supercharged with StyleCloud. StyleCloud offers beautifully designed, high-performing website templates built just for creatives like you. Whether you're showcasing weddings, portraits, or passion projects, you'll look as good online as your work does in print. Were you left high and dry and wondering what you were going to do with your Flow Themes website when the company shut down? No problem. StyleCloud makes migrating your Flow Themes site easy. Your content moves over, no stress, no mess. Plus, import your images directly from your PicTime galleries. No downloading, no re-uploading, just seamless integration and stunning design. Visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/StyleCloud or visit the link in the episode notes. Save 15% when you use code NerdyPhoto15 at checkout. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/StyleCloud and use code NerdyPhoto15. StyleCloud isn't just a template, it's a launchpad for your brand. Get started today.
Well, I would say in some ways that would be good, but it's kind of funny now that we're seeing a very kind of, how can I put it this way, a weird situation going on where a lot of commodity and luxury items have the same industry pressures as government expenditures, government purchases, as well as corporate America. So, it's very rare do you have where the government's not spending money, real estate's not spending money, luxury items are still getting bought, but I think they're getting bought on FOMO more than anything else.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because, and I know we haven't started yet, but it's funny that when you go into, as we're going into WPPI season and everything else, which kind of relates to what we're going to talk about, Annie at WPPI as the keynote speaker, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
I think she's probably, not a wedding photographer, somebody who has shot weddings, but not a wedding photographer like, a Joe McNally. I think she's probably the biggest draw that they've had at WPPI for probably about 20 years.
Well, as we were talking about before, I think that the numbers had gone down. So that might be an attempt to try to boost.
Well, I hope so, because I think right now we are going through the change that we saw probably in 2008 to 2012, where photography truly made the digital photography transition, and it went from being it became democratized. So it went from being, I mean, it still technically is, but it went from being an old white man industry
Mm,
to being a young talent that was now, and especially in the wedding and portrait side, where the customers and the providers started to match.
mm.
Um, and we talked a couple weeks ago when I was up there for watches, and I like to go on some of the watch forums to see how a lot of women don't like how the watch companies are marketing towards women, and I had to, my thought is watch companies market towards their buyers. A majority of buyers of watches are men,
Right.
even when they're buying for women. So therefore, instead of making a smaller version of a Submariner, they make a pink version of a Submariner,
Right.
or they put like diamonds and sparkly on it because that's what women like, right?
That's what dudes
And
think that women like.
that's what they think, right? And so I think when you start going into the photography side back in 2008, most of the customers of consumer photography were women. They're the ones that arranged the family photos. They're the ones that arranged the wedding photos. They did a lot of that stuff. And now, for the first time, you had women who were on the other side of that table providing that service.
Yeah.
And so now we get fast forward to now. You have we've gone beyond getting. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we've gone beyond getting cameras for Christmas and now starting a photography business to where we are at the point to where everybody's utilizing AI to some point,
Mm.
and photography is not about just the product, because I can go on Google Gemini and make me some great headshots, regardless of what we photographers would like to think, right?
Yeah.
But yes, it doesn't look like me, but it looks like a good resemblance of me. And the what you're now trying to pay a photographer for is to capture your essence, which the AI can't capture.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it would become democratized to where if we're not using the new technology, we get canceled out because we don't have that business. We're artists, right? We're artists, and so we don't have that business acumen to say, okay, how do we leverage and exploit? So, which I will go to in there, how I leverage and exploit dark skin when I was in Charleston, South Carolina. That's a unique area of the U.S. Because they have a lot of people who are not too many generations removed or diluted from slavery.
Mm.
And if you ever hear about the Gullah Geechee, the big thing about the Geechee, most of those slaves came from the Ogeechee River in Savannah. And the big thing about those slaves were that they were from Western Africa. I want to say around the Ghana area. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were well versed in growing rice and indigo and tea and things that you do not equate America plantations with is
Right.
rice, indigo, and tea, right?
Yeah. Not necessarily something that you thought of like as staple crops for the South.
Right. And in Charleston, they have tea plantations, indigo plantations. Black rice was used to make indigo, right? So it was used as a dye. And if you know anything about rice production, like in Asia, with all the technology that is out there now, it's really still artisanal, where your family passes down this tribal knowledge of how deep and how wet and everything that the soil has to be. So in Charleston, you have a lot of people who have this very dark pigment, and as we've spoke about before, there's undertones in that skin.
Yeah.
And so, too long didn't read, but the TLDR of the situation of why I think photographers are having even a harder time now shooting dark skin is because photographers are shooting more and more in color.
Mm.
See, that's my hot take. That's my Stephen A. Smith hot take right there. They're shooting more and more in color than they ever have, to where black and white photography is different. And think about this: 30 years ago, you had the difference between Ilford film and Fuji film as far as which ones you wanted to use for black and white photography, especially if you're going to use sports and just different tones that were inside of that compared to using Kodak film for portraits and stuff. And it's hard to believe that 30 years ago we were doing that. It's hard to believe that 30 years ago payphones were normal, right? And I think that more so than anything else is because while we use histograms for exposure of the image
And not
not necessarily for exposure of the subject. And so when your histograms are based off of 15 to 18% grayscale white,
yeah.
and you get something that's 85% grayscale white, right? Because we say it's white, not black, right? So grayscale white, the nuances that come with that is, yeah, I might be exposed for it, but the color doesn't look right, or it's too dark, or whatever. Yet, we can shoot Harry Connick Jr. Is he still alive?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We can shoot Harry Connick
Yes,
Jr.
he's still alive.
Who isn't known to have the best hand in the world, but is known to be a very snappy dresser that will be in a tux while he's playing the piano. I'm thinking that's right. He plays the piano, right?
Yes.
And we shoot the lapel. Like you can't see it because this is going to be audio, but I have a black hoodie on. And you can see the difference of the shade of the inside of the black hoodie compared to the outside of the hoodie.
Charcoal of the outside. Yeah, there's a difference.
And this camera, which is a DJI camera that I'm shooting on, perfectly exposes for that. But yet we, with our technologies, don't do that. And we make an excuse that, oh, I don't know how to shoot black people. Black people are harder to shoot. But that being said, the question I would ask, what I wanted to shoot back to you is, because you threw me out some questions, and I reviewed through them, right? Why after 10, 15 years of us having this conversation now, other than being able to shoot in color all the time, is it still hard for photographers to, and with the Sony, which does a great job in computational photography inside of the camera, and Fuji, which does a great job of computational photography inside the camera, not to mention iPhones and stuff like that, why do we still have such a hard time
exposing
for dark skin?
I think because, I mean, as a white guy who has photographed lots of people of varying skin tones, and a lot of time at weddings, I'm dealing with people who are wildly different skin tones. I'll have somebody who's you have one partner who's a very light skin tone, somebody who's a very much darker skin tone, is because of what you were talking about there. Like, you don't think about the undertones, for one thing, that the camera technology is not, obviously not considering that. It's thinking about things in terms of highlight and, and black, like it's either black or white. That it's very, you can, I always talk about this as like something that people don't think about when they're exposing for, it's like they don't think about a metering method that they're using. They're not thinking about like, oh, am I using spot metering? Am I using, center weighted? Am I using like an overall? But they're like, oh, why is it that my, in this shot that I took at a wedding, people are dancing, everything is really underexposed, or is really overexposed or underexposed or whatever. And I'll find like, well, it's because of big, like, what metering mode we're using. And a big chunk of this is white. Like somebody with a white shirt, like they took their jacket off, their tux jacket off, and they got a white shirt on, and they stepped in front of the camera during, like, on the dance floor. And that's like 60% of the frame is somebody's like shoulder got in the way with their like purely white shirt. So everything else is not exposed properly.
Or the flash being blue,
right,
coming out, right? The flash is still, it's kind of funny that we talk about monoblocks and whether or not Godox is enough white, or compared to Profoto, compared to Broncolor or whatnot. But the flash tubes are still blue, right? The flash tubes are still coming out at this ice, I want to say 35 or 3000 Kelvin type blue that comes out. So it's something that you just said that I think, and I know we got to get started, but it's
No,
something
we're
that you
already
just said.
started. Everybody, we're already in it.
Oh, oh, we
I
already
think we
okay.
started.
You
I
coming
think.
hot?
Welcome to
You
the
coming
Nerdy
hot?
Photographer Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Casey. We're here with Leighton DaCosta. Uh, we're into it. I think we've already started having the discussion. So I think
Okay. Well, so I will at least say this. Hey, this is LD Leighton DaCosta. Give you a drop for your thing, your intro. This is LD Leighton DaCosta, and I am a semi. I can use that word semi-retired photographer down here in Florida because that's what people do in Florida. We semi-retire,
semi-retired.
which means that as long as I have a camera and there is a tax advantage, I will still be shooting. Which is what we do here in Florida.
Tax
The
advantages.
as opposed to you people in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you mean, you people?
what do you mean, you people? So, as we talk about it, something that you just said. So, three things that I think that really affects us on how we shoot, just people, different shades of people.
Yeah.
And things that we're not doing anymore that we used to do regularly 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And once you learn how to do these, you never had the problem on being able to expose or shoot or whatnot. Metering the light. How are we metering? Are we, like you said, are we doing incidental metering? Or are we doing spot metering, right? And one of the things with, in studio, if you have a light meter, you usually are going to actually shoot, the incidental light. You're actually going to shoot what the light is actually receiving, what the subject is actually receiving, as opposed to what's reflecting off the subject. Exposure. There's something I used to have when I used to do weddings, especially down here in Florida, outdoor weddings, where the sun changes every 15 minutes in its angle. And you either have the benefit of shooting in broad high noon from 10 to 2 where the shadows are harsh, but the color temperature is consistent, right? Or you're going to shoot in from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock and beyond, where it gets warmer and warmer and warmer as you go on. And so the challenge that comes back is that back in the days, we used to have this thing, which they still make, they still sell, called an expo disc. And the big thing about an expo disc is it served two purposes. It helped you to expose for the scene based off of the light that was actually coming from the light source. But it also allowed you to do custom white balance in camera, which was a huge difference, especially even if you're shooting raw, which 10 years ago with I want to say it's the Sony A7R, which was really the big in my opinion, digital camera pioneer in the 35 millimeter frame space. And we all know that Sony had awful color science coming out of the camera
in the beginning
compared to Canon and Nikon. But, and I say digital space, the mirrorless digital space. But the thing about it is, if you could do custom white balance, once that was set, you were shooting weddings that you could edit pretty much in 40 minutes to 2 hours right after the wedding. And then the third thing, exposure, color exposure. So both lighting exposure and color exposure, metering, which will lead you to visual perception. I think when we look at somebody who is dark skinned, we may like how their skin looks, but we may not like how their skin looks on them in frame or in picture. So therefore, we add different colors, different undertones, different pigments or whatever, because we didn't capture it right in what their essence was. And we want to expose them in the same ways that we expose, white people, right? Now, that being said, it wasn't until I went overseas that I realized that guys that work with a lot of younger to Asian women, which shoot very, very, their skin tends to be a lot more paler, right? By societal design, I'll say that. or people like what's her name? Is it Liv? Not Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler is fairly pale too, but I'm thinking of Anne Hathaway.
Yes, very pale.
That it is harder for them to shoot color for them as well because they go below that 15% threshold,
Right, right.
and people have hard times lighting them.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So, and then they make them look ghostly and ghastly at the same time, and they make black folks look either ash like red orange or very very ashy or whatever to compensate for that.
Okay, I think here's a question for you. Like, and this is not a question that we had discussed beforehand. The like something I notice a lot in the is the use of different the colored like gelled light started more. I feel like with people using that with black skin models, where you get like the very orange in cyan type of thing, than with so that you'd have like those highlights in the skin to bring up like to bring that like not have just like a white light on someone with darker skin tones than with very pale models, because like the very pale models would just come across as like
Yellow.
you're just yellow.
Right? Like you don't they don't usually use CTOs with very pale subjects, right? And if they do, they use them as accent lighting, not for the main front lighting. If you know that I love that fire and ice
Yeah.
type, blue and red gels or whatever with dark skin because of how the specular highlight that still comes off of that. I know that's an old term, specular highlights. I haven't heard that in a while, but
I was just thinking it, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna.
but that I still think, and I'm going to use her for an example. Hopefully, I can use her because I think right now in the education space, using off-camera lighting and different creative lighting techniques. Ms. Adler, right? That she has been very, very deliberate in how she teaches lighting, especially for different skin tones, right? And I think she does a pretty exceptional use. Now, I don't know how much of that comes from the area where she grew up versus the area where she lives, right? And when I say that is this. I grew up in Florida, New York, well, Brooklyn, New York, and I'm Jamaican, right? So I tend to see dark skinned people all the time. If you're from, and I can't remember exactly where she's from, but like if you're from like Ithaca and you grew up near the Finger Lakes or the Catskills, 20, you're not seeing so many differentiators and different shades of black, right? And so it's like when you go shop for chocolate, there's a difference between milk chocolate and dark chocolate. But even when you go into dark chocolate, you start going 45, 70, 85, 88, 90, 92% cacao.
Yeah.
Right. There's a difference in just that texture and the shape. So I think when you start coming back to that other side of, hey, they're using gels, they're using this, they're using light. And sometimes that stuff was used to compensate for not being able to light. And sometimes it's used to enhance. If we use it as a recipe, we use it as cooking. Are you using salt and pepper to enhance the flavor of the dish? Or are you using salt and pepper and hot sauce to mask a bad dish or badly or poorly cooked dish? Going back to when we were talking about the flash, that blue bulb of flash that comes out. The old wedding trick is when you're shooting and all of a sudden some guest or whatever has shot their flash, right? While you're shooting. Well, that's going to be black and white.
Yeah.
Because, right?
Or you've got those, like the DJ lights, like like come on all of a sudden and you're like, oh, that's a black and white one.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of one of those things to where And I'll throw one last thing. Earlier, I said that we market to our customers. When I was in Charleston, like I said, a lot of my customers were dark skinned, and it wasn't even so much that, oh, only black photographers can shoot dark skin. Even a lot of black photographers had a hard time shooting dark skin, right? Because a lot of us were not taught some of the old traditional ways of how to light and shoot people in general. We weren't taught and given the bowling ball challenge. I don't know if you where you take a black bowling ball or a sphere or a bottle or something, and to be able to use and adjust to be able to shoot that ball or that black sphere, that orb, perfectly, because that orb represents a space. And then you can take a dark bowling ball and a red bowling ball and a white bowling ball and get similar exposures to them. We weren't taught the cheat codes. So those are things that I still encourage people to learn. Like I said, if you don't grow up with that perception of what different textures and skin tones and whatnot look like, and to where they become just normal, to where you can look at Naomi Campbell and be like, oh my gosh, her skin is so beautiful. And then still look at Anne Hathaway and still look and say, oh my gosh, her skin is so beautiful. Right? It's like dark chocolate milk, whatever it is. I think that's where it becomes hard to shoot those extremes and what we consider cultural extremes.
Well, you bring up that, like, getting used to it or having the exposure to it. Like, what are the misconceptions that people go into, like trying to like light darker skin tones? Like, what is it? What are like the big misconceptions that people just like go in and think, okay, well, I can do this. I haven't done it before, but like I can, I know how to do lighting.
Right.
What would you say like the biggest misconception is?
So lack of practice, like I said, the bowling ball thing, the lack of practice, or not having a canned lighting setup to start from before doing certain people in general, right? So it's like if I am a photographer that always puts my lighting source on the open side that I'm shooting, right, and it's opposed to shooting from the closed sides and have it, to give this cinematic look. Well, I may always have, and you see me with my light on there, I may always have my male subject looking into the light the same way I would have my female subject looking into the light, not realizing that it softens both of them. And for certain subjects, I may want one to look more assertive or aggressive, or gender terms, masculine versus feminine, right? And to me, that's the same thing with lighting. To say, oh, I can't use harsh light, I can't use a softbox, or I have to use this. We get away from the actual subject, lighting the actual subject itself.
Right.
To say, hey, we're going to create a look. And in this day and age where editing has been very, very democratized by software, right? That software is pre-programmed with the visual perception of the programmer of what a person should look like, exposure, skin tone, and color.
Yeah.
So some software, and I'm not going to pimp any software out, some software is better at that than others. Some software has had to go through iterations to get to a certain point now. And once again, if it's garbage in, garbage out, if it's not balanced to go in, that software is just going to take the information on the pixels and say, hey, based off of this is what I think it should look like. And then you have somebody, just like I said, using the DJI right now. I know that if I shot this on my Nikon, exact same, if I'm looking at it, I think I am right at 3,300 Kelvin. The DJI has put my white background almost perfectly white. It gives a little blue tone on it. But it has me almost like an incandescent tone, to where I think I'm being exposed right around 6,000 Kelvin-ish. And I know that that's not what that looks like. And I've noticed this when I've shot watches, and I'm using my uh, co-branded light setup from one of the photography stores in New York.
I know which way. You can say.
Right? Which gives you the benefit of local service. So, right, that way I can still save that for a possible sponsor,
Yeah.
or we don't. But anyway, I know that its model lamps are warmer. I just now recently got a set of apertures, right? Which the coolness, that perfect 5500 makes such a huge difference in shooting video and on even how the DJI picks up because of the quality of the light. And lastly, oh, I forgot about that, the quality
Quality of
of
light.
the light source. If we're like, because we are such a visual, we want it to look right, that even sometimes if we get the skin to look right, the rest of the image looks off because the quality of the light source is not on the subject may not be as great as what we're trying to achieve. Um, you know, you probably went to the same old school thing where we used to call it stroboscopic lighting. And we were taught that stroboscopic lighting was not used to light a subject. Stroboscopic lighting was used to freeze motion of a subject. And the secondary effect of it is that it illuminates, right?
Yeah.
But we all had hot lights back then too, as well. So that was the big thing, right? I think now we're at a spot now to where perceptionally, to get people to look like how they look like in real life and a better version of them has to be the driving force on shooting and exposing folks better. And we can't use the excuse. Shoot a black, like I said, shoot a black tablecloth. Shoot salt and pepper on a black tablecloth. Shoot a bottle of wine, a bottle of red wine, which is going to have the nuance of red, but still photograph very, very dark, right? It's one of those things where, hot take right here again.
Got either they're coming fast and furious, folks.
Black coffee is really brown.
Yeah.
Right. And that nuance of shooting spilt coffee on a white tablecloth next to a glass that's reflecting, filled with black coffee, and still making black coffee look black, but the foam look brown. And if you ask most people to do that, they can do that. So why do they have such a hard time shooting a dark person in any other environment wherein, oh, and I love this, a dark person wearing bright yellow or orange clothing, getting that effect. And dark people like wearing, because not only does the red or the blue or the orange or whatever pop out, but it usually makes your skin pop as well and capturing that essence. And I think, like I said, it was going back to when I was talking about the software and being democratized. Editors, as we go shoot overseas editors, a lot of times, or graphic editors who look at the entire image and not all, and they just want to make sure the skin looks smooth and everything else. The software makes the skin look brown. It adds those yellow tones into it, and it's not trying to keep it neutral. So, like I said, and the photographer will always get blamed. I have seen the person that's the keynote speaker at WPPI.
We can say.
Okay, I've seen Annie shoot Serena different ways, and her skin would sometimes come out absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and then other times it's like, that's not the same Serena that I know, right? Whereas, man, Jeff, and the photographer down in, I have to, his name is Jeff, and his last name is blowing my mind right now. And at like 2 minutes after we have this conversation, I would actually remember his name. So I am, oh, there we go. Jeffrey Salter. Amazing photographer in the Miami area. A lifestyle I would venture to say fashion, but very much a lifestyle photographer who hits every time he shoots. And when it comes to color grading, the essence of someone, even with gels and everything, the dude hits. I mean, every time he shoots, every time he aims, he hits the target. But he grew up, I believe he grew up in the Miami area. Former Navy photographer, I think he did also combat photography. So he's used to doing things on the fly. He is a phase one photographer, so you don't see too many phase one photographers these days. But one thing that impressed me about Jeff is he is not a sports photographer, but he has a ton of covers on Sports Illustrated.
Because he shoots good portraits.
So he shoots good portraits, and you can't have bad color.
Yeah, on the cover. See, there's the thing.
Because,
like
go ahead. Sorry,
we had discussed this a little bit. I think it was part of the reason we decided to get together and record this, because a lot of like Annie Leibovitz is getting a lot of flack for her pictures of Michelle Obama, and people saying like she doesn't know how to like black people. She doesn't know how to like black skin, and I have a feeling we talked about this. Like, it's like not that she doesn't necessarily know how to light it; it's that she doesn't know how to edit it, or whoever's editing it. The colors always come out. I feel like it's not necessarily in the lighting; it's the. It feels like there are like tones that are applied afterwards. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just like there's a portrait of Simone Biles that she had like that I feel like has the tonality of like a Klimt, like or some other like painterly looking tones to it, but it doesn't do any favors to Simone Biles. Like it actually like it makes her skin tone look like there are no undertones. There's like but it's like it's this look of like the visual tone that we are going for is not complementary to the subject, if that makes sense.
Because I just had to pull up, I know you're talking about the one that was on Vogue for the back shot, right?
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is this. In 2020-ish, the 2000s, the 21st century, and I'm not saying shooting, I'm saying presenting. A lot of presentation in the effort of being timeless and classic is still being shot in the way that 1970s Rolling Stone would shoot. Right? And that at that time, you're talking about there is a lot of colorism inside the industry. One of the biggest things back in the 80s, one of the movie that we all love, Coming to America, right? Where there is certain, and I'm not going to hash it up, but there were certain co-stars that were said that Eddie Murphy wouldn't have at the time, right? Because of that, the colorism. So when you look at the Simone Biles, I'm looking at it now. I think the reason why we see the color issues, and because I want to throw out, there is a Vogue cover. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick with LeBron and Gisele Bündchen.
Very different skin tones.
It is, but it's perfection. It is perfection. If you pull it up, you cannot get better. You cannot get better exposure, and it has green, it has the brown skin, it has the black. Giselle is perfectly edited in shadow. LeBron is perfectly edited and shadow. It is the perfection of what you would expect an Annie shot to look like in studio. But on the same note, it is also flattering to both of them. Even though I want to say there's some tones there, societal tones there. But You look at the cover of with Kanye and his former wife. You now see there's it becomes color grading because Kanye is fairly dark skinned. They have made Kanye brown skin and added a blue color grading to give it a timeless look. So the reason why I say this is that some of what stands out where we pick out and choose on what Annie does and Annie doesn't do is the posing and presentation of the subjects. And when it comes to posing and presentation of dark and brown skinned subjects, it is very much more subjective than aesthetically pleasing for everything else. When she does group photos, in my mind, one of the best photos, like the iconic, and I have it somewhere around here where I have like the shots of Vogue, a book around here, and I'm trying to see if I have it in the office. And it has the dream team versus, when I say the dream team, the political dream team of George Bush's cabinet. And you turn the page, and it has the Fahrenheit 9/11, Michael Moore crew. But everybody in that George Bush cabinet, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, all those people are light lit perfectly and color graded perfectly. And they're shot on film. So they're not even being shot digitally. Right? They're shot on film. I think what she puts out is what people want to, what the people who buy Vogue and buy Vanity Fair and buy Rolling Stones and those editors want to see. Because if you look at, I just pulled up one, if you look up Viola Davis and Vanity Fair, same cover. Beautiful dark, beautifully lit. Another back shot, totally better. But you know what she's showing? The muscles and the physical attributes of this person. There is a lot of undertones that are usually used with Black subjects in their physical prowess, not their achievement prowess. And you can even go back to Marion Jones. There's a reason why when Annie shoots the body issues, they look great because they become very subjective. And this is not a chastisement as much as it is an observation.
Well, I think
it's neither right nor wrong.
I think that's kind of what I was going for with like the saying that it's in the editing. It feels like it's in the post-production. It is very much an editorial choice for those particular publications, not necessarily that she's lighting it poorly. It's that she's like, this is the editorial choice of the magazine.
And they're choosing those certain poses because she's not just shooting 15 frames and calling it a day.
Right.
Right. So the editorial process is, and that's why, like, if we talk about think about this. If the LeBron James Vogue cover with Gisele Bunch, exactly as it is, came out in October 4th, 1996, people would have been in an uproar because of the O.J. Simpson ruling on October 3rd, 1996 or 95, the day before, right? Because of those connotations. Now we come back to where we're at right now. Like I said, the look and aesthetic, and please, I mean, don't make me look bad. I might get fired for this. The look and aesthetic of that, it shows you how great that person is and what kind of product they could present. The Michelle Obama cover of Vogue, right, made her look brown, but it also still made her look youthful and graceful and elegant. When she shoots Meryl Streep on that Rolling Stone cover, come look at this. I like I said, it shows up on here. It shows Lady Gaga on my search. Lady Gaga, Meryl Streep, and Adele side by side. And it shows Adele looking rosy cheeked. It looks great. Makeup looks good, beautiful. Um, Meryl Streep has a lot more seasoning to her visage than Adele does. She's been around for a minute. A close up, so they put her in a mask. Why do they put her in a mask? Is they put her in a mask to cover up that seasoning. I don't want to say the age, right? It's what we want to see on the cover. And the editors and the like I said, I don't know if she can get all the blame when it's the art directors, the print directors, the editors, the you know what I mean? There's so much more added to the team. But what you do notice is that when you see them shoot men, you don't see as much fall off in how they are presented as far as color grading goes.
Mm.
If you see them shoot Idris, they don't have that problem. If you see them shoot, like I said, LeBron, they don't have that problem. Kanye, they shot him lighter, but if you see them shoot Kanye by himself, they don't have that problem.
And my question is this like is this a bias that because of how women are presented? You think that I mean historically though, like I mean we touched on this a little bit before, but like historically the like the like film stock, the light meters, the like early digital sensors are all sort of geared towards exposing towards a lighter skin tone. And you know, we're like used to getting the result. It's not necessarily even like an attempt on the photographer's part to misrepresent the tonality of somebody's skin, but it's just that the stock or the
I'm going to push back against that. So
okay.
sorry, I'm going to push back against that.
No. It's not. It's like the stock and the sensors, at least early on, are not geared to accurately represent those tones.
But if you look at photography from as recent as Weems, but go back to like Gordon Parks back in the 70s, right? Or Cecil from South Carolina. Cecil, I can't remember Cecil's last name, but Cecil, for those of you who don't know, Cecil is the one that is photographed drinking from the whites only water fountain. He is also a photographer, right? Back in the 60s or whatnot, 50s or 60s, right? But anyway, you go back to, they're shooting black and white. They're shooting on these stocks. They're shooting with the same film as everybody else. And in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they're still able to expose with the same equipment as everybody else. You go back to the most photographed man of the 1800s, Frederick Douglass, right?
Tintypes.
Right? Photographed more than even Abraham Lincoln, even though he didn't have as much time to get photographed. That's beside the point. Right? And, you know, his last night was a shot, was a shoot. But no, that's a John Wills joke. So the thing about it is that if you think about it, is it really that way, or is it that excuses that we make? Is it really say, hey, we couldn't cook like this because we don't have that same kitchen setup as Gordon Ramsay. But if Gordon Ramsay came into our kitchen after a few expletives, he would still make a better meal. He would still make a better beef Wellington than I do. It may not be up to his standard, but it would still be a resemblance of the beef Wellington that he's known to make. And I think because we have so much of a crutch, we do not market, sell, shoot to people. And this is not me going to blame the victim, but it's going to sound like blaming the victim. If a certain customer base demands a certain product outcome and result, the market will eventually move to provide that certain product outcome and result. If certain photographers lose business and there's a market for that business. Guess what? The market will provide that. If you go to Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, the drive-throughs, right? All of them now have double drive-throughs. All the new ones have double drive-throughs, multiple drive-throughs going out because less people are actually sitting in the restaurant eating. Most people are getting it to go. You go to now McDonald's, you can get a McFlurry after a few lawsuits or whatever, but the ice cream machine is working. Now, is the ice cream machine working because of the lawsuits? Or is the ice cream machine working because they're losing market share to restaurants like Culver's
or Wendy's
and Dairy Queen and Wendy's? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm blaming dark skinned people for not. I'm blaming the dark skinned people for taking substandard work that they do not themselves like from photographers and not demanding better. If you demand better and you say that you vote with your wallet, your pocketbook, right? If you demand better from your providers, because photography at the end of the day, while it is commoditized, it is still a relationship. It is still a relationship. Like, I want to be shot by Jerry Gionis. I want to be shot by Jerry Gionis, right? And if I have a choice between getting shot by Jerry Gionis and Peter Hurley for a headshot, I may make a certain choice. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If I have the choice between those two, which both of them, they're great guys, right? I invite you for a cigar and a beer. If Jeffrey Salter is added to that mix, Jeff's getting my money. Jeffrey's getting my money because he is going to make me look in a way that I did not know that I could look and still feel like myself. That is very important. That is very important as a photographer to get your subjects to look in a way that you provide that they didn't know that they could look like themselves. This is the reason why so many people are using the AI platforms to get, well, you don't look like that. I know I don't look like that.
But
and after I lose these last 137 pounds, I will look like that, right? But I mean,
they want to
here's
look like
something. What's the guy? Now I'm doing that. What's the Lil Nas X? Look how he is photographed. You've never heard anybody say, "Oh man, his skin don't look like that." He is photographed as a black stallion, black dark racehorse stallion. Call him Sunday Silence, right? He is for you racehorse people. So I think there has to be where the customer base, and I even throw this out. You don't hear customers, you don't hear regular people say, Annie Leibovitz cannot shoot Simone Biles. You hear photographers say, Annie Leibovitz cannot shoot Simone Biles. And you know what Annie Leibovitz says? Show me your photo of Simone Biles.
Right.
Because I have one. Do you have one? Right?
Yeah, I think that like again, I think that the criticism, a lot of that criticism is probably more leaned towards the editorial and like post production and whatever toning in my opinion as a photographer. But I think, and I agree with what you're saying, like demanding better service is going to like, better product is going to have a huge impact. And I think that the problem that happens for some people is that they don't know how to approach getting better at photographing black skin or just different skin tones. Like, again, this is something that I had to learn early on as a wedding photographer because I was getting a lot of, mixed tone weddings where I was like, uh-oh, like, how do I, like, this person is very dark, this person is very light. How do I get them in the same photo and have the like it not look like it's under or overexposed on somebody? And I think that a lot of people overcompensate to lighting dark, like by just turning up the lights to light darker skinned people because they don't know, like, oh, I need to keep some I need to keep some shadow in there. I need to keep some
Well, you remember you used to light overlight somebody when they had wrinkles,
yeah,
right? Like you
wash
blast
it
them,
out.
right?
Yeah.
Um, that goes back to a customer base. I will say this as a wedding photographer, if you knew that you were passing up an extra 5 to 10 weddings a year based on your inability to light somebody, not even a dark skinned person, a brown skinned person,
Hmm.
right? If you knew that you were passing up at effectively 5 to 6 digits worth of revenue a year, would that make you more receptive on learning how to do that? The deeper challenge is that customer base. I was at a wedding this past week. I was at a wedding this past week of a photographer, and I went as a guest because I was going as a photographer. But the question is, hey, LD, how much would you charge to do this wedding? Really quick backyard wedding or whatever. The more in the wedding photography business, the more a customer describes the wedding,
Mm.
the more they expect the wedding, or the cheaper they expect the wedding photography to be.
Yeah.
It's only a small wedding in the backyard with there's only going to be 10 of us, and we're going to have really good food and this, that,
We
and
only need you for an hour.
right? The more that comes up, the less they want. So when you sit there and you're like, well, hey, how much would you charge me to come do the wedding? 3 hours? Oh, only $3,500. Right? Well, it's only 2 hours. I know. I was hooking you up. Right? and the thing about it is
I
that
normally don't do 2 hours. I normally need at least 4.
right? You still have a large customer base and a photographer base meeting that customer demand of not providing value for their quality of photography. And so, and when I say that is you're providing good enough. And that's what the customer wants. The customer wants good enough. If a photographer had the essence to say, hey, I want to provide better than good enough. I want to swim up. I want to be able to adequately light any skin subject and then get better at that. I want to know my lane. If my lane is, hey, I do courthouse weddings and I'm going to stay in my lane, just because you stay in your lane doesn't mean that you can't dominate that lane.
Right. Not
Right.
that you can't
Just
be
because,
amazing at courthouse weddings.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that, hey, if I'm only charging $750 for a courthouse wedding, right, which puts me in a point to where I'm competing with my friend that has a camera, right? And do I want to spend that much? But if I'm doing that and I'm like, dude, this dude does a 35-minute courthouse wedding photography, gives you an album, this, that, the other, and you've democratized it to where that 35-minute only takes you an hour of pre-post and whatever it is outside of transportation. And you can sit out there and do 8 weddings a day at the same courthouse. And that's that's your studio. You have it locked in. The only way you get to that spot is because you dominated that lane. And I think photographers, Dunning-Kruger, we talk about Dunning-Kruger. Incompetent people are not competent enough to realize that they're incompetent. And competent people feel that what comes easy to them should come easy to everybody else. Right? I used to tell folks this. The difference between me and you is that I'm good enough to realize that I suck. Right? The white speck on chicken shit, that's chicken shit too. Right? And so Pure Country, George Strait, great movie. And I think that is important for us to, as a photographer, not necessarily to be humbled, but to have the desire to say, hey, can I shoot a cup of rice, a cup of rice pudding in white milk in a paper cup in a snowstorm and be able to get the details in those shadows, right? You know what I'm saying? To understand that they're not just different shades of white, they're different qualities of shadows that make it stand out. If I'm going to insert some watch into this. Currently, right now, Swatch Watch, they have a moon swatch called the Snow Moon. This is the first white watch or non-blue watch in this series. And it has an Earth phase complication on it where Snoopy is on the moon as the cartoon from the 60s when we landed on the moon. He said, I beat everybody. I even beat the cat next door, right? I beat the Russians. I beat everybody. I beat the cat next door. But one of the differences in this version is that while Snoopy is on the moon with Woodstock and he has a helmet on the moon, little Easter egg, he actually has snow on his helmet, which I've only seen it because it was photographed well to differentiate the snow from the helmet from looking through the helmet on the back of the watch. It's just a little nuanced, different white. It may be the difference between 00000 and 0001, right? Just that little nuance. But and I say young not by age, but by experience, young photographers still look at exposure based on the highlights, not also by the shadows. So when you're talking about quality of light, quality of shadows, quality of all of that, I think that's kind of where we have to educate the customers to say, hey, what you are getting from me is not just good enough, it's beyond good enough. And then they could see that. And unfortunately, we are using crutches like editing. We are using crutches like software. We are using crutches like, and little known secret, I use the same crutches, so I'm not chastising, right?
We all do it. We all do it.
But Cullen became such a huge industry in the past 10 years, from photo mechanic to aftershoot, that now, guess who has culling inside of there? Lightroom.
It's not.
But Lightroom doesn't have culling because of those things. Lightroom has culling because when you go into Google Photos or Apple Photos, I type in what I'm looking for, and all of a sudden, it brings up everything that I've shot that way.
Yeah.
So they lost market share and use. Why do I need Lightroom anymore when Google Photos or Apple Photos does a generic enough editing on it? It does great, fetching. I've started shooting because I was forced to. I've started shooting camera raw on my Samsung phone, and every time I shoot camera raw, it does its own little generic editing, and that generic editing is good enough. So, if I'm giving a customer good enough, why do I have to get better? And that's what a lot of photographers think about, because, they do not upgrade until the market is about to leave them behind. I've been guilty of that. We know a lot of film photographers. Hey, digital is just a fad. And in 2005, when digital started to become much, much more approachable, it's just a fad. They still spent $4,000 on a Nikon F6 camera because a $3,000 D2H or whatever it was at the time was not worth it because the pixels didn't match for film. But it's like, if I can go back 20 years, man, I'll tell you right now, I would be a much better photographer because we lost we lost perception of, I took a shot right now, looked at the back of the camera at my 256 channels, and saw that I was underexposed. And in less than 30 seconds, I realized that I needed to be at 1/350th of a second, at f7.1 and here.
That's one of the biggest things about like the difference between shooting. I was talking to somebody who shoots only film for weddings, or mostly film, not only film. And I was talking about how that would just drive me. I used to do it. That's how I started out. But I said it would drive me insane now. Why? Because I want to know that I am making the adjustments that I'm, and especially during like portrait time when I'm shooting portraits for everybody, and it's like everybody got their eyes open. Yep, okay, we're good. It's like that was the thing when I was shooting films that just like always drove me crazy. And being able to know that stuff now and being able to look at it, and like you do have the ability to like practice and look at the back of your camera or look at the file and just be like, okay, I need to change up what I'm doing.
It's funny. You can see this, but the audience can't. But I have
It's another
a
subtle
Nikon.
jab at me not recording video. That's okay.
Well, it's nice to have face to face conversations,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I have a Nikon F100 in my hand. And the main reason why I had bought this Nikon F100, and at the time I was shooting with the Nikon D810, is because this F100 had TTL logic built in. And why that was so important with me at the time, this was like 10 years ago, is that I can use my Profoto B1s, which had TTL logic for Nikon. And I can go between my D810, meter exposed to everything else within 30 seconds based off of the film that I was going to have in here.
Right. Oh yeah, I do. I still do that. I still do that.
And if I had that in 1995, the ability to do that, I tell you what, that adds another 10 years of your growth because once your eyes get trained to see what you want to see, this goes back to the colorism.
It's like
Once you get
Polaroids.
trained to see what you want to see, why do you shoot in black and white in camera? Well, because I'm shooting raw, right? That's the quickest way. But I just wanted to see if I'm exposed right, if I got good composition, and if I'm focused. That's all I care about. So once I get the color balance done, boom, I switch it over to black and white because it's less I got to think about. Now, every once in a while, especially with my old Nikon, I would fat finger something and the quality would go from raw fine to just fine, right? And I'm in JPEG. And if the worst thing that I had happen to me is that I shot something in black and white in JPEG, but the composition, the focus, and everything and exposure was right.
Right.
Then, okay, you know what? Man, that model photo shoot looks great. Like look at that texture and everything. Like, yeah, it was pretty good, man. I tell you what, and
it was fine.
And then eventually everybody's like, that I love that you use black and white. It was really, really, artistic freedom. I think that's important. That's important. I wanted to touch on something though. So, like I said, in Charleston, I had a lot of dark-skinned customers. In San Diego, I had a lot of interracial customers. But in San Diego, I liked to shoot out in the desert. And so desert lighting is a little bit different. Especially in Southern California, if you've ever been out there and you shot, it's weird because it's like this very soft, harsh lighting at the same time, but it's great for loop lighting. So if you're a loop lighting person, it is probably the best place to do loop lighting, that because you have perfect loop lighting for like 10 hours of the day. But one of the things, like I said, is when you're trying to have, because you asked me about this, about inclusivity of your portfolio, and I touched on this earlier. When I was in Salt Lake, were there people that I could shoot that were dark skinned? Yes, because it has a high African, Nigerian, and Cameroonian population in Salt Lake City, Utah. But most of my customers would still have been white. So I used different subjects to show that I could shoot different subjects. I made it a point to that if I'm going to do a TF, let me do a TF with somebody that I normally don't have to drive business to the people that I normally do get, right? They see something different visually. If I shoot mostly women, let me shoot men to show diversity.
Right.
If I shoot mostly kids, right, let me shoot maternity to show diversity, right? And there are different ways to do that. And I think when you, as a photographer, especially with the industry shifting again, and this is something, like I said, 20 years ago, it was a bunch of old white men, and then a lot of young, excuse the phrase, quote unquote, mom togs invaded, and these old white men got upset, right? And they called them digital Debbies and digital Dans. I think that was a term that they used in a very dismissive way, right?
I never heard digital Dan, but I definitely heard digital Debbies.
Yeah, digital Debbie. I tell you, down in South Florida. And then where it got an issue was that late 2000s, early teens, the demographics, especially in wedding photography, when you had not just interracial couples, but you had same-sex couples started coming in. And then you had photographers like, hey, I need a same-sex couple because I want to diversify my portfolio. But they never were inclusive in their portfolio to begin with. They just did it as a way to increase
So
market share.
yeah, when it becomes very obvious that you're just trying to like tap into the extra money or
And I
whatever.
think that's the same thing with dark skin. I think that's the same thing with dark skin, brown skin. If you want it in your portfolio and you suck at it, there are plenty of underemployed models in this country and in the world. I can go to Thailand right now and find you a model that has a gray scale of between 80 to 90% gray right now, this minute, right? I could probably go to Moscow. I don't know about Siberia, right? But I could probably go to Moscow. I know I can go to Anchorage, right? And find that. And the reality is this. If you're looking to get better, instead of practicing on clients that are paying you, pay someone to practice on. If you don't have the resources to pay somebody to practice on, like I said, once again, a bowling ball, an iPhone, all these things that have darker spectral highlights and gradients, start shooting them in black and white. Start learning how to use the light, shape them, angle it, and then get the color grading better. And it doesn't matter if it's dark skin or if you want to like right now, like I said, my hobby is watches, right? And I am shooting watches to make posters. Something similar, like, hey, I got a printer here, right? Let me use my printer to make posters. And one of the areas where I found some traction in is in micro brands, because everybody's going to shoot a Rolex poster.
Right.
In New York, you have this great watch company called Brew, right? And it's based off of the timing of a espresso, right? Like there's like the thing on it. Nobody shoots Brew. Nobody shoots that to make posters. But you see guys from Alton Brown to Idris Elba wearing Brew watches, right? And these are the $600 watches. These are not expensive watches. So to me, it's like,
it's a microbrew.
Microbrew, right? If you want to get better, find something and practice with that. And I think that is what a lot of photographers don't do. I'm guilty of it. We don't practice enough on things that we want to shoot. And better that we get, the less we want to shoot for what we don't get paid for. And going back to Ms. Adler, when she talked about, hey, taking 2 or 3 days out of the month every month to shoot what you want to shoot, get better at that, build a portfolio just off of that, right? And you'd be, yes, it's costing you money, but you would be surprised at how much money you would get returned as you get better shooting that.
And because you're building the portfolio, you then have that stuff in your portfolio that you can show people who want to hire you to do that work. And as you go along, you get better and better at it.
And as a business guy, you have to have the mindset to say that Leighton D is my customer. Leighton D is LD's customer, right? And so if LeightonD.com is redoing, which I'm guilty of it because I haven't posted my blogs, because I'm one of those guys that have like 200 drafts, right? But you don't hit publish. But if Leighton D is Leighton D's customer, then when Leighton D pays a model, pays for a subject, or pays for a watch, or pays for something to shoot, photograph, I'm hiring myself to shoot something. So at least if I'm going to practice with a customer, let that customer be me that I'm practicing with.
Right. That's a fantastic way of looking at it. Like that you're hiring yourself to do the work to put it into your portfolio, to get it in there and get better at it.
And I believe in alignment. So if you are a maternity photographer, right? If I'm a maternity photographer in New York, I'm riding the subway I say, hey, and this is me, excuse me for being opportunistic. I'm riding the subway looking for dark-skinned baby mamas or pregnant women, I should say baby mamas, pregnant women, and be like, hey, do you want a train pass, a metro pass for 2 months? Right? Something as simple as that. And you're photographing your maternity, but you're also getting your dark skin on.
Yeah.
you're also building that, and then you can use those for your sample products. So when you're showing diversity to your future clients, they're like, oh, he or she shoots. Oh, wow, this is great. This is different, right? When you are traveling on vacation, don't use travel on vacations because once again, those are tax implications on there. But let's say that you are using work on vacations, right? Hey, book a shoot, book a model, a local model or a local family or whatever it is to get that kind of content that you are needing practice on in your portfolio. And they don't have to be pretty. I forgot who told me this. So like, hey, your your um your website is for pretty people. Your blog is for all the ugly people, right? And it's like, but a lot of people will go through your blog to look at people just like them who are look way beautiful than they ever have, and you tell the story. And at the end of the day, we have to get back to using our lenses to tell stories and capturing people in their essence to tell a better story.
Tired of juggling multiple programs to get the perfect look? Say hello to On1 Photo Raw, the ultimate photo editing software built by photographers for photographers. It's fast, powerful, and packed with tools, from precision masking to AI-powered enhancement. On1 Photo Raw gives you complete creative control without the subscription headaches. Edit raw files with ease, retouch like a pro, and bring your vision to life with stunning effects, all in one intuitive platform. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, On1 Photo Raw helps your photos stand out and your workflow stay smooth. Ready to upgrade your editing game? Download a free trial. Just go to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/on1. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/on1 and start creating without limits. Use our link and the discount code NERDYPHOTO20. That's NERDYPHOTO20 and save 20% off if you decide to purchase or subscribe to On1 software. On1 Photo Raw, powerful, creative, yours. Hey, photographers, imagine losing every photo, project, or document in a single crash. Scary, right? That's why there's Backblaze, the simple, reliable, and automatic way to back up your important data and photos to the cloud. Photographers, creatives, and everyday users, Backblaze protects what matters most with unlimited backup and easy recovery whenever you need it. I use Backblaze as part of my workflow to back up my most recent shoots until they're delivered to my clients, my most important business photos and documents as well, and all of my personal photos and videos. It's just $9 a month or $99 a year for unlimited data backup from one computer with 1 year version history and access to your data from anywhere. Crashes happen. With Backblaze, your files are safe, secure, and just a click away. Start your backup today at nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/backblaze or click the link in the episode notes, because peace of mind is priceless. That's nerdyphotographer.com/backblaze, because you never know when a crash is going to happen.
Hey, hey, hey! And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
For this episode, Leighton, which U.S. state do you think is closest to Africa?
I mean, if I was to assume either Florida or Hawaii by distance, by population, South Carolina.
No, distance was what I was talking about.
Okay.
The
So I would say Florida only because the Pacific is big as hell. And even though Hawaii is look like it would be a how can I put it this way? If I'm looking at Africa, I'm taking in something like, let's say, the Azores or the Canary Islands, and I'm counting those. And considering a hurricane, only takes about 5 to 10 days to go from the Canary Islands to the Keys.
Okay.
And a typhoon, well, I still would say Florida.
Well, I mean, yes, Florida's obviously closer than Hawaii because you still have Asia to deal with before you get to Africa.
Right.
But the correct answer is Maine.
Are you talking about going over the pole?
No. It's like Maine is actually further east, and you draw a straight line over to like Morocco in the Azores. Like from there, like it's actually closer than Florida.
So I'm going to go use are we using a Mercator projection or what? Because if I'm using a chord line, and I'm taking, I would say Portland.
Okay, look at like how Africa is shaped there, and
Right.
where Florida actually is. The distance we're talking about is going up towards. You don't realize how far up, like when you think of like France, like Paris is actually on more of a
New York,
like New York, as opposed to like people always kind of like think it's like further south, but it's not.
Right.
That's more like New York. So, but Maine is way further east than Florida is.
Yes,
and if you're just going in a straight line from Maine to like Morocco, Azores, whatever, like
I'm looking at it visually. So I'm looking at it visually, and I'm using a chord line. I can give you that. I'm looking at it visually, but hold on a second. I just want to make sure before I commit to that answer.
Final answer. Is that your final answer?
I will accept that. I will accept that. I can admit when I'm wrong. And the only reason why I say that based off of that definition, South Carolina, but I still say by chord line, if I were to draw a chord line from, I want to say the Tangiers or whatever it is, right? Whatever that's at the top of Morocco and that area.
Yeah.
Because we're because like we're not talking about the Straits of Gibraltar. We're just talking about that. I want to say, hold on a second.
This might be the longest we've ever
done. Yeah, you're absolutely 100%. I'm looking at it right now. I'm trying to see where I want to look at what town this is, because I'm having a little hunt for Red October.
Whenever they end up parking the sub.
Yeah. So like if I'm in Cutler, Maine, or Lubeck, Maine, but then by your definition, Canada is closer to Africa than America.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is even more useless information that I did not need to know, that Nova Scotia
is closer to Africa.
It's closer to Africa than Key West.
Yeah.
And that is why we waste time on this podcast.
Yes, exactly. That's why we have the trivial knowledge. Leighton, thanks for coming by again. It's been a while since we've had you back on the show. I don't know if you're still. I don't know if this makes you the most frequent guest, but I think it does. I think you've become a most frequent guest again with this.
Am I the youngest guest though? Am I still the youngest guest? Or
you're the flyest guest for sure. You
know what we got to do when Marvel gets back on Netflix and they bring back Luke Cage. That's when I need to come back and bring back the Jamaican accent there. I would. Hey, Casey, what's going on, man?
That was the worst.
What, Casey?
That second season was terrible.
Casey, get the new haircut now.
Still not as bad as, well, I don't know. Was it Marked for Death?
No. Meet Joe Black.
No, yes, that's awful. But I'm talking about generally in a movie. Was that Marked for Death when he's like Screwface? Keith David. Was that Keith David? Screwface? No.
But Marked for Death is one of the Kevin Skull, the Steven Seagal. The Steven Seagal movies, like that's when the Steven Seagal movies
were popular.
Were about a catchphrase as for title, just like how the Jason Statham movies are about occupation phrase, right? You know what I mean?
Yes, the catchphrase. One guy thought he was invincible.
Hard to kill.
The other guy
Steven
thought he could
Seagal
fly.
is hard to kill. He is marked for death. He is under siege, right? Whereas Jason Statham he's the beekeeper.
Do you know who I am?
I'm the beekeeper.
You know how you do a Jason Statham accent? You're gonna get a little low, but you're gonna say, "Do you know who I am?" as fast as you possibly can. Do you know who I am?
No, I am. No, I am. No, I am.
Yeah, you're gonna get rid of his. I'm a beekeeper. I'm a working man.
So what I love about Jason Statham's story, I know this is like more useless information. Guy Ritchie, right?
Found him. Yeah, is this how he found Jason Statham? Go ahead.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie. And the thing about it was that Jason Statham is a great example of of not only staying in your lane, but dominating it, right? By doing what you do. Because when you look at a Jason Statham movie, you expect you never want Jason Statham to show up and be Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Right? You always want him. And the thing about it is, Brad Pitt now, whether Brad Pitt is serious like Moneyball, or he is funny like Money Train, right? I'm glad I did that off the top of my head where I can link those two together, right? He's still Brad Pitt. And he no longer has to be anything. And so even when you're looking at World War Z or whatever it is that he was in,
it's the Clooniness.
He's Brad Pitt. He no longer has to be Meet Joe Black. He is just Brad Pitt, and he's cool. So that being said, if you could ever get me and Brad Pitt
in the same room
on the podcast,
yeah, then then we have to do video, and I have to light it properly to keep the skin tones right.
I will do the entire podcast
in the Jamaican accent.
In my Jamaican accent, right? We'd have to schedule it right when I come back from home because that's when it's strongest, right?
Strongest.
You're down
just
for a week. Like,
yeah.
Well, man, yeah, and that way people are. Am I twang? Yes, I am twanging. Because they usually take it from customs when I come through. Right?
Do you have anything to declare? Yes, my accent.
Right, exactly. Right. Once again, thank you, Casey, for having me on. Though I appreciate it. It's always great to be here.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
It is as I get older and my eyesight gets worse. Right. I use that diopter even more. Right. Make sure your diopter is perfectly focused.
Mine is cranked. Mine is cranked as far as it can go.
It is great to see. I will say this though. Prediction time. I think in the next 5 years, you will see a huge revolution of photography back to 1997/98 to 2003 when photojournalism was all the rage, right? And the main reason why, and even in the early digital era, it was the rage. But I think to go back to authentic, shot on film, not AI, photojournalism is going to be where people are going to get their credibility from. I think that's going to be where they get and you've already seen it with Kodak and Fuji bringing back a lot of old recipes on film that they didn't have. And you're like, why are they bringing back all this 35 millimeter film? Like, who is out there making 35 millimeter cameras? Right?
Oh, there are new 35 millimeter cameras.
Exactly.
They're like point and shoots. People want those. I bought an Olympus like at my local camera store. It was like in a used pile, and I'm hoping it'll actually work. But like I was just like, oh, this is a look that people want. This is a look that people want. Out there. I
was like I said, I had to buy one of those I think they're called B123s or whatever, the B cell batteries that you used to have to put in the APS-C cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I had to go out and find one to see if it would work, and it's like there's I think what you're onto something there because it's that that sort of backlash, because we're already starting to, I think, the first wave of backlash against AI, and people want to know what they're seeing is real. And like younger people, as much it's a very, and when I say younger, I don't mean by experience, I mean by age. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
nostalgia for a time that they didn't experience that was not connected to the internet, um, and what they view as simpler. So I think you're absolutely correct.
And if you think about that, like I said, that 10 years, no, 15 years ago. Wow, it's been that long. When Canon came out with the 5D Mark II,
Hmm.
right? Which was revolutionary.
Yeah.
Right. It was
This
revolutionary.
is shooting video.
Right. Fusion video was big in the wedding space. Right. And not only did you need a videographer, but you were supposed to be shooting Fusion. How do you link your slideshows and your video and everything together?
And
And I
just little
remember the
clips of
Bowie
video.
brothers, right? They were great. Well, think about this. You don't have a demand for that anymore. You have a demand either for video and photography, but you don't have a demand as much for videography,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think now and then now you get the Nikon ZR, I think it's called which is the Nikon Z Red,
Yeah.
right? Which now puts that
Cinema
has
camera.
now put what would have been a Panaflex camera 15 or 20 years ago. Like we've gone past the 7D, right? Or the 7D Mark II to where you're now into a camera about that big where it's going back to the lenses, smart on the manufacturers, going back to the lenses. A camera that was never on my radar that is on my radar now. I hate to say this. This is how I know I need to be a broke, starving photographer again. A Leica,
Yeah.
right, right. I think it's the Leica. Is it the M10 Safari or whatever it is? But I was looking at two of these Leicas, and I like the Leica Q3 too as well, right? Leica Q3 I think it's the 43 millimeter lens Q3 that they have out there that is just crazy, right? The shooting experience, going back to a shooting experience. But when you think about this, Leica right now has lenses out there that are over 10 grand. Not to say that they didn't before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people are buying and looking for these 10 grand lenses. And we've this is going back again 20 or 30 years ago. If you look at a Canon R lenses are not losing money.
Hmm.
You go back to the EF lenses. The EF lenses have started crashing. And now that you got such good adapters for these EF lenses,
people want them.
They've stabilized.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, I think, and if you're looking at a camera, I've been trying to find the Nikon DF, the old DF that I used to have that got stolen. You can't find those on the market. People are keeping them, using them with old F-mount lenses and everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that is another sign of where the industry is going. Like the industry is starting to become less about, as we become more software based, the photography as an industry is now becoming more hobbyist centric again, and professionals.
This is very clear. Yeah. Like
that line of, like, even if you're a weekend warrior, you are a weekend. You're like a guy, like a weekend warrior, a military reservist, still goes to war.
Yeah.
Right. And so that like that line is becoming real. There's a difference between a guy that goes on base once a month versus a guy that just goes hunting and put on camouflage.
Right.
And this is getting to the point to where I wonder how exciting the industry is going to be 10 years from now. Right. Whereas old people like me and maybe you,
I'm old.
when we train, when we're training this next generation, is the education going more and more back to workshops like it was in the late 2000s and early teens? Or are we going to see a resurgence of the Art School of New York or the Art Institute? Are those going to start making a resurgence, to where sculptors, like people are going to actually do 2D art? Because remember, three-dimensional 3D printers
Yeah,
took away.
a lot of
So,
a lot of 3D
but
stuff. Yeah, it's like it's a. I think that the thing, whether and that is whether it's a school or whether it's a workshop, whatever, it's in person.
mhm.
I think that you learn way more from, like, I don't know, I absorb it way better in person than I do watching a video. I mean, video is very helpful, and obviously, like, YouTube University can help you solve a problem fairly quickly if you find someone who knows what they're talking about. But
Mhm.
if you don't, you're not, the chances are not great. But like going to I'm going this weekend to a bunch of like workshops. Here I'm gonna, you know, I'm doing stuff that I've never done before, just to, like, to stretch a little bit, and like, but I think that
Here-
I get way more out of it doing it in person than I do watching
Here's a
somebody's thing
question I wanted to
online.
ask you real quick, and before we sign off. This is about a gear question,
Sure.
and specifically towards. I can't talk about anybody's business model. Their business model is their business model, but pro photo.
Mm.
While there looks like the pro photo slash Godox have been using some kind of R&D crossover type things, because certain new models within a couple of months, it seems.
Iterations are very
Yeah.
similar.
The question, and if people know how processing chips work, the difference between an i9 and an i7 and i5 is that they all come from the same sheet. It's just different qualities on that sheet. They're all made at the same time. It's just different threshold on specs. So you
Yep.
can get an i7 that is actually much higher than other i7s, almost i9 quality, just not consistently i9. Here's the question I want to ask about this. I'm looking for another light meter, and I go on the Seaconic page to go look for a new light meter.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Ellen Chrome, which they've always had for a while. They've had Pocket Wizards, which they've always had for a while built in. But they also have Godox
Yeah, I've got
and a
one.
couple other systems built into the light meters. ProPhoto still has not loaned out the code, quote unquote, for them to do that. The question is, are they missing the boat, so to speak, by doing that?
I think there's a. I
Or
mean, there's an element, much like with Leica. I think there's an element of the, we don't need to do that. Like, we're Profoto, and like, listen, Profoto products are excellent. They're excellent, but I think that there's a little bit of like, oh, we don't have to bend to that point where, like, we're going to lose our market share if we don't have this available. I think that I mean, I personally like the ability to be able to set off my light meter, like set off my lights and adjust the power of my lights right from the light meter. Like,
Mhm.
hey, isn't this great? Like, I don't have to, like, switch over to my camera and, like, do that. Like, it's
like
yeah.
like I said, it's making like I still have Pocket Wizards, which I haven't used. I got to make sure that the batteries aren't leaking inside of them, because I haven't used them in forever, because I'm using mostly my Godox or my ProPhoto triggers, right? But the thing about it was that now that there is, and even if ProPhoto said, okay, you know what we'll do, we will sell an adapter that you can
Our
plug
own. Yeah.
into a Seaconic light meter. That way that we don't have to give up our code. You give up your code, and but I'm about to make a buying decision to get a Seaconic meter that has Godox inside of it, because it has Godox inside of it, which will trigger off my flashpoints.
Yeah.
Sorry, that is the company that is from New York. That is
I mean,
right.
listen, I buy from Adorama, get those flashpoints because they're, like you said, there's much better service if you need to
Hold on a second.
I'm gonna post the link in the episode notes to go to Adorama.
That's what I'm about to say. Oh, by the way, this is LD, one of the guests for the Nerdy Photographer podcast. And I just want to remind you, in the notes, click on the affiliation link for the Nerdy Photographer podcast for our favorite place, Adorama. I'm not sponsored by Adorama, but guess what? Somebody else is. Help him out by clicking the link.
Right? I'm not and unlike other people,
he doesn't have kids to feed or a growing family.
Yeah. And on that note, Leighton, it's great to have you back. And how can people find you on the internet so that they can tell you?
You can find me at mostly on the IG. You'll find me underneath Leighton D Photo on the IG. I post usually some smart things or whatever. Every once in a while, I'll do some photography, some locations, some travel, some watches, maybe even some cigars. And whenever I choose to update it, you can find me at LeightonD.com in the future as soon as I hit publish, or where I really am at on the YouTube at Leighton D Photo on YouTube.
Be sure to go follow them. Those links are all in the episode notes, folks.
And if I'm not there, I'm at the gym working out.
Or he's smoking crack. Really good. He's getting some good barbecue is what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? By the way, I was not smoking crack. Smoking crack is whack. And no matter what nobody tells you, cocaine does not smell good. Don't try
it. Don't test that theory.
All right.
That's good. And we are back. And many, many thanks to Leighton DaCosta for being on the show. You can find Leighton's links in the episode notes. Be sure to give him a follow. What did you think of our conversation? Was it helpful? Did you enjoy it? Leave us a review and let us know how you felt. You can also follow along on the socials at The Nerdy Photo. That's at The Nerdy Photo, no dots, underscores, or dashes on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Reddit. Okay, it took about 45 minutes for our first image to develop, and let's take a look. Wow, these colors are amazing. Just incredible.
Ashway. Gonan Ishana. No Nashina Nini.
What do you mean that's not your good side? Okay, back in front of the camera. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.